All right, you guys. I have a PowerPoint that I will give you some info about Corinth. Um, where am I going with this? I'll try and post some notes later so you can print them, have them. I don't know, do what you wish with them. Anyway, here we go. If I can get this to work. There we go. So Corinth. It was founded officially around 700 BC. It actually existed earlier. That land that it was on was occupied since like 3000 BC, so basically a long time ago. And that 700 BC is when it officially became like a city-state, had a ruler, and so on. Anyway, Corinth is located on the right there on the isthmus, isthmus, the isthmus, the isthmus of Corinth. It is a little piece of land between the water there, and obviously that is a dope spot for a city because uh, ships would sail through here. They would stop there, land their boats, and then push them across the land and keep sailing out this way instead of sailing, all the way around that island. So it was an awesome spot and a great trade route, and it connected this part of Greece with the northern part of Greece. People, like I mentioned, would roll their boats across there. Corinth, you can see right here that actually has a canal now. They dug a canal there to make it easier for boats to go through. And actually, the story is that Nero, the emperor that burned down Rome and then blamed it on the Christians, was the first one that did the official first shovel of dirt to dig that canal. It wasn't finished till like 1800, so way long after that. I don't know why. You guys can look into that. Not really important. Anyways, it was ruled by a series of families from around 700 BC to 338 BC. These families were tyrants. It was ruled like a city-state. It had its own country, basically. Until this guy, boom, Philip II of Macedon. He is the father of Alexander the Great. He conquered it, and eventually it became part of the Kingdom of Macedon and the Macedonian Empire, and so on. Now, Corinth, after the breakup of Macedon, was, a nice city, continued to be all chill and stuff, ruled like a city-state. And then Rome decided to get all powerful, and Corinth was like, nah, fam, that's not cool. Just kidding, no one actually said that. But they didn't like that Rome was getting all strong, so they rebelled. And obviously that didn't end well for them. The Roman general Lucius Mummius, he demolished the city. He sieged it and enslaved everybody and burned it down. Like literally demolished it in 146 BC. Like boom, gone. So for about 100 years there was no city there. There were some farmers that occupied the land, but no city at all. Now, Corinth 2.0. In 44 BC, Julius Caesar was like, yo, let's build a city on top of where the old city used to be, because this is obviously a cool spot for a city. So they rebuilt Corinth on top of the old Corinth. So this is the Corinth, the one that we read about in Acts 8. Paul spent a bunch of time here. It was like over a year and a half. He met up with Priscilla and Aquila here. They built tents to support their ministries. They sold tents and so on. Now, the culture of Corinth. This is an important part. The brand new city was no more than 100 years old. It was a very young city. It was the city to be in. It had everything new, everything cool, trendy, and so on. It had this clash of cultures where the old would meet the new. The old Greek culture would meet the new Roman culture. The Greek culture was very sexualized. Corinth served the Greek goddess Aphrodite. They had their temple prostitutes and stuff. That was like the obvious thing. You had to have prostitutes at your temple to Aphrodite. It's like a no-duh type of thing. And then the Romans brought their money, started rebuilding it, rich people, and they were totally about that Greek culture too. They liked the, prostitutes and whatnot. With all the money that came in, other people came in. Merchants, people who would sell stuff, tradesmen, construction workers, stone miners, that type of deal. And each person had their own idea, their own way of life, and they would come here, and this would just be this giant pot of, like, weirdness, weird culture, I guess. So a modern comparison to that would be Vegas. Corinth is the Vegas of the Mediterranean, right? Welcome to Corinth, which is not in Nevada. Now, let's compare the two. Brand new city. Vegas is pretty new. It started in like the 1940s. It really blew up in like the 50s, 60s. It had a clash of different cultures, right? Rich people, poor people. There's a bunch of money in the city. It's very trendy. And there's a certain reputation, right? We all know that. The reputation of Vegas, Sin City. So what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. You can kind of apply that to what happens in Corinth stays in Corinth. It was similar to that. It had a certain reputation that everybody knew. It wasn't a very good one, right? So the problems Paul would have had would be that his audience was very worldly. The questions would be, how would your message of the gospel stick? How would the message of Jesus stand out in this pot of weirdness? It was so anti everything that Corinth was about. It was anti-worldly, and Corinth was all about the worldly stuff. How would the idea of Jesus even find any ground with these people? Like, who would listen to it? There were so many other dumb ideas floating around. Everyone had their own way of life. This wasn't Athens. Athens was like a sophisticated, complicated city where these ideas were thought about and they, had more logical ground. Corinth was not that. Everyone did their own thing. You do you, and keep it up. Sorry, a cat's meowing over here. In Acts 18, we read about this. We read about Paul's time there. In 1st and 2nd Corinthians, we read about the troubles that the churches had, that Paul had to teach the church, like, hey, don't do that, do this, come on, we're Christians, and so on. Not only that, there was actually multiple churches that he established there, and there was some conflict. We read in Acts about, I am Apollos, I am of Paul, I am of Jesus, so on and so on. So Corinth today. Modern Corinth is not in the same place where the old Corinth is, where in Paul's time. It is northeast of this ancient city of Corinth because the ancient city was destroyed. Now the ruins are very well preserved, and they're still being like dug up and excavated and explored to this day. So if you want to visit there, you can visit that. The ancient city was destroyed in 365 and 375 AD by earthquakes, like massive earthquakes. And then barbarians and conquerors and other people did their own thing and a bunch of crazy stuff. That's it for Corinth. Boom.